Thomas DeMar here, and today we're going to be talking about horn calls in the SCA. So I've been researching horn calls from medieval period all the way up through the end of our SCA period, 1600. It's been a 5-year project, and there's not a lot of information out there, so I've had to try and piece things together. And what it comes down to is we don't really know for sure exactly what they sounded like. There's nothing we can point to that says, this is what it was, this is what this call was going to sound like. So I've taken everything I've learned and I've condensed it down to something that we can use today in our Forester Guild as we practice the Forest Guild today. So I've written a number of horn calls that I want to teach to you. These are very basic calls. I try to keep them simple, but these are something that we can easily use as rangers or foresters when we're out hiking, canoeing, or even out in an SCA event. We want to communicate so there's something going on. So I've tried to keep the list short and keep things relatively simple to memorize. Part of that is because a lot of horn calls were very intricate, and the longer they were, the more intricate they were. Yes, the more information you can convey, but that goes to a culture that had a much stronger oral history and the art of memorizing things once you hear it once and being able to keep that information in your brain. We don't have that society today as much as we wish we did. So a lot of what we know is written down and passed on that way. So keeping things in a short frame is something that we can do to help keep this so that it's something that is actually usable to what we are doing in today's SCA game and our medieval practices. So a number of these I'm going to go through and explain to them as we go what they mean and how they are. But the basic thing to understand is that our horn calls are really nothing more than Morse code. It's a short note, a long note, and a pause in between. So we use that dot, dash, dot, space. We use that as our horn call. We're not worried about trying to get different pitches. We're just worrying about short, long, space in between. That allows us a lot of leeway in being able to create different calls. If we wanted to, we could just do Morse code. But that's a lot of information to come very quick and try and get out. And we're not really trained as a society to memorize that. So I've really condensed it down, try to make it simple, and let's see how we do. So first, I'm going to take off my horn here. It's a lot easier to blow when it's not on my side. And one of the gatherings that we always have in the Foresters Guild is the Swain Moot, right? Those are our gatherings where we have our court. We want to let people know that it's going on, that it's actually starting, because let's face it, it's Scadian time. So even though the clock says one thing, that doesn't necessarily mean things are ready to start. So this is a call so that if you hear this, it is time for Swain Moot. It's time for the foresters to gather. So what we do is we treat these as phrases. So in medieval times they called it a wind or a wind, depending on how you want to read that. So that would be a phrase, and the horn call overall would be a strake. So we're going to learn the phrase, the wind, and then we can expand it to the horn call or the strake itself. So first let's talk about the phrase. So for Swain Moot, I have a short, a long, two shorts, a long, and a short. Then we're going to pause. So here's what that is going to sound like. So that is one phrase, okay? That's one wind. So we're going to take that and we're going to do that 3 times, and that creates our strake, our horn call. Now the reason that I'm doing it 3 times for the entire call is often when we're outside or we're doing things, we don't always hear the beginning of a conversation, right? We've all been there. We walk in, we're like, oh, I missed what was going on, but I can catch up. By repeating these 3 times to create the entire call, if you miss the first 1 or 2, you can still get the message by the third one. It's, oh, I hear something, I need to pay attention. Especially when you're out in the woods, you're never quite sure, was that an animal, was that a horn? And it takes you a second to tune into that, yes, I should be listening to it. So we're going to repeat that phrase 3 times, and that will create our horn call. So the complete strake is going to sound like this. So that would be our strake for swing mood. So you hear that whole thing, it's repeated 3 times. That is our call for that. So I will be making sure that we have written records of this, and I'll post the link for it so you can see that. So these are something that we can all practice and learn. I recommend learning the phrase first, and then it's just repeating things 3 times. So from this point forward, we're just going to focus on the phrase, understanding that we're going to repeat that phrase, that wind, 3 times. So we've done Swain Moot, right? That's all the foresters are going to gather. We're going to have our court. Now, when we're out in the woods, there's a couple things that we need to communicate to people when we're hiking, whether there is someone out at camp that have gone foraging, or they're looking for someone, and you want to recall everybody back to the camp or back to your starting point, okay? So I call this the return. So wherever you are, you hear this, you know, oh, I'm being called back to camp, back to the meeting point, wherever that was. Oftentimes in medieval times, this was used for the hounds. It was something that you blew that, and then the hounds would all come running back to where they were supposed to be. So it's a good way to call people back without having to shout, because we can't shout that far. So the return is very simple. It's going to be a long, long, short. So it's going to sound like this. All right, so if I were to do the whole thing, all right, we're going to repeat that 3 times. And there we have our return strake, our horn call. Now, the other one that we're going to look at is begin. So if we have someone who is, let's say we've been strung out on the trail and everyone is stopped, and the person at the lead of the hike wants to get things going, or sounding off that we're going to begin the next thing that we're doing, or a start signal, we're going to do a short and 2 long. So it's the reverse of return. So try to keep it simple that way. So we're going to start short and 2 long. And that's our begin signal. So whatever you've predetermined, you know, you're trying to get going or you're trying to start, those of you on the hike or if you're at camp, you know what that means. You know, that's the go signal, that's begin. Now, one of the most important ones that we have out there is distress, help, right? Something has happened to us, we need help, or someone else is in distress. We need to get that signal out that there is a problem and that we need help. Whether it's from a group of people or an individual, we need to get that message out very quickly, loudly, and make sure people understand it is urgent. And for this, I've kept it as something that is instinctual. Many of us, when we pick up our horns, we blow 3 long blasts. There's something about 3 that is just ingrained in us as a culture, society, and we want to get that message out and heard, so we make it as long and as loud as we can. So every time I've been out in the woods doing ranger trials and hiking with friends and stuff, whenever we've come into a problem, people just naturally blow 3 long blasts. So I'm not going to fight with nature. That is going to be our signal for distress or help. Okay, so 3 long blasts. And we're going to repeat that 3 times. Once again, very important that whoever it is that you're working with out there can hear that, understand, and find you. Because not only are you calling for distress, but this is kind of like echolocation. You want them to know where you are. So you can repeat that horn call as many times as you want. There's always in groups of 3. Okay? So we hear it, oh, something's going on. And then we can get the message, okay. And the next time we hear it, hopefully it's echolocation. We know where they are. So that is one of our most important ones. I try to keep it very basic to our simple nature of what we do naturally, because when we're in a panic and adrenaline's going, that's kind of what we fall back to. So we're going to use that to our advantage. Now, another one is contact or found it, right? Usually when we're hiking, we're looking for something or we're trying to get to a goal. whether it be to the top of a mountain or down to a beach, or we're looking for something specific, right? If you're sent out, I haven't seen so-and-so, do you know where they are? Okay, you're going out looking for them. So whatever it is that you are searching for, whatever your goal is, this is the signal that you found it. In medieval times, a lot of this was that the dogs had found the prey, or that the prey had been cornered, right? It's that same kind of concept. So keeping it very basic to contact or found it, we understand what the general message is. Even though it's not specific, we get the idea of what's going on. So that is the opposite of our distress. That is 3 short blasts, ... So that will sound like this. And we'll repeat that 3 times. Once again, hopefully echolocation, they found it. Oh, we're going to go over there where we heard it. So we're keeping that very distinct from distress, but it's also very simple and easy to remember. Another important one is water. A lot of times when we're out in the woods and we're camping or we're hiking, we're always having to keep in mind, where's our next source of water, or have we run into a water obstacle, right? So water is something that is a life giver, it's a life taker, and a lot of times we're out in areas that we may not be familiar with. So if we have found it, we want to let people know. So on the Ranger Trail, a lot of times, if we find a spring or something like that where we can get water, then I'm going to call this call to let people know that, hey, we found water here. It's a good idea to reload any water vessels that you may have. Always very important, especially in the summertime. So that is going to be a short, a long, and a short. And that will sound like this. And we'll repeat that 3 times. So that lets us know we found water. So that might mean that you've come to a stream that you have to try and figure out a way to cross, or most likely it's going to be I found a source of water for us to drink. So it's very important to have. We probably won't use it very much, but it's something that is in our toolbox of horn calls that we can use to communicate what we need. And the last one that I want to go over is something that we don't tend to like to think about, and that is danger. And that could be anything. That could be a rock slide, that could be a fire, it could be a flash flood, or it could be that there is an impending storm coming very fast and you're exposed in the elements. That happens to us more than we'd like to admit, especially if you're on a pond or a lake and you can see that storm front coming over the water and it comes very quickly and you're completely exposed on the water. You're trying to get to safety. So if you see something like that, you want to be the one that's going to call out and let everyone know that there is danger to be aware of. What that danger of will depend on the moment. But this is just a generalized danger. Look up, beware, something's not right. And that is going to be a long and a short, right? Just those 2 notes, keeping it short, keeping it brief, but getting the message out there. So a long and a short is going to sound like this. And we'll do that 3 times. So those are the basic horn calls that I've created for the East Kingdom Foresters Guild. Anyone is free to use them. It's going to take me a little while to memorize them. I have my little cheat sheet here with them written down. But I'm hoping that for those who aren't musically inclined, that the concept of Morse code is really going to help you understand and be able to read what the calls are and any notation that goes along with it. So I will be writing up a document to share with everybody that shows these as Morse code, but also as musical notes on the staff. Now we're not changing pitches, right? It's just one pitch with these. It's just short, long, space in between. But we can still write that out on a staff of music, and I will do that so that for those of us that are musically trained, it's easy and quick to understand. For those who are not musically trained, Morse code is very obvious and easy to pass around for people to understand. So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope these horn calls go far and wide and heard by many.